They say a man who tries to outrun his shadow will only end up breathless in the dark. But have you heard of Okafor? Okafor was not a thief who used a ladder. He was a thief who used his tongue. In the village of Umu-Aka, they didn't lock their doors because of robbers. They locked their ears because of Okafor. Okafor was the ultimate troublemaker. He was the kind of man who would sell you the air you are breathing and make you thank him for the discount. He was a master of confusion. If two brothers were laughing over palm wine, Okafor would walk past and whisper to one, "Your brother said your wife's soup tastes like river mud," and to the other, "Your brother said you borrowed money from a ghost." By sunset, the brothers would be fighting, and Okafor would be sitting in the corner, eating the yams they dropped in the scuffle. He lived by one rule. The world is a marketplace of fools, and I am the only one holding the scales. He was rejected by his kinsmen. His own father, on his deathbed, refused to give Okafor the family Ofor, the staff of authority. The old man said, "Okafor, if I give you this staff, you will sell it to the spirits and tell them it's a flute." So Okafor grew up with no inheritance but his wit. He was shamed in the village square, called a destroyer of homes. But he only rubbed his belly and laughed. He didn't want respect. He wanted the long bread. One year, the great king of the neighboring town, Ezennuku, announced a grand competition. The king was old and had no heir. He declared, "The man who can bring me the most invisible treasure shall sit on my throne." Now wise men knew this was a test of character. They brought songs, they brought stories, they brought the wisdom of the ages. But Okafor saw a gap in the fence. He went to the forest and captured 300 fireflies. He put them in a beautiful translucent ivory box. Then, he went to the palace. He walked past the noblemen, past the scholars, and stood before the king. "Great king," Okafor said, his voice as smooth as butter, "these men bring you things you can hear or see, but I have brought you the breath of the ancestors. It is so holy that only a man with a pure heart can see it. If a man has ever told a lie or felt greed, the box will look empty to him." The king, not wanting to appear impure, looked at the empty spaces between the fireflies and said, "Ah, I see it. It is magnificent." Okafor smiled. He had the king in his pocket. For 3 months, Okafor lived in the palace like a god. He ate the best meat, drank the oldest wine, and wore silks that felt like water. He was rich, but his riches were built on a foundation of smoke. But you see, the gods of Igbo land do not sleep. They see everything. Okafor's trouble started when he decided to trick the chief priest of Ani, the earth goddess. He told the priest that the king wanted the sacred ivory horn of the shrine to be cleaned at the palace. It was a lie. Okafor wanted to melt the silver off the horn and sell it to the coastal merchants. The priest, suspicious, gave him the horn, but he whispered a command to it: follow the hand that holds you, but stay with the heart that owns you. As Okafor walked back to his secret hut, the horn began to grow heavy. At first, it felt like a bag of yams, then a bag of stones. By the time he reached his hut, it felt like he was carrying a mountain. But Okafor was stubborn. I am the man who tricked the king, he said. I will not be defeated by a piece of bone. Suddenly, the fireflies in his ivory box began to turn into wasps. The breath of the ancestors he had lied about began to sting him. He was trapped in his hut. The weight of the horn pinned him to the floor, and the wasps of his own lies began to feast on his skin. The king arrived at the hut, having been told by the priest that Okafor was cleaning the treasure. When the guards broke down the door, they didn't see a prince. They saw a man covered in welts, pinned under a horn he couldn't lift, surrounded by the empty firefly box. The shame was not a quiet thing. It was a loud, drumming roar. The whole village of Umu-Aka and the people of the king's palace gathered. Okafor, the king said, his voice trembling with rage, you made a fool of the throne. You made a fool of the ancestors. You wanted to be a king of lies? Then you shall have a kingdom of shadows. The punishment was ancient. Okafor was not killed. Instead, he was bound to the echo. The chief priest performed a ritual where Okafor's voice was taken from him and placed inside a hollowed-out log. He was banished to the Whistling Woods. Okafor did not die because he was such a troublemaker. Even the land of the dead rejected him. The ancestor said, if we let him in here, he will sell our spirit crumbs and tell us they are made of straw. Today, if you go to the Whistling Woods and you shout a name, you will hear a voice shouting back. People call it an echo, but the elders know better. It is Okafor. He is forced to repeat everything everyone else says for eternity. He who spent his life telling lies and too much sense is now cursed to never have an original word of his own. He is the man who wanted to be the loudest in the room, now forced to be the shadow of every voice. He is rich in words, but poor in meaning. He is the ultimate rags to riches failure. He gained the world through tricks and lost his soul to the wind. So the next time you think you are too smart for your brothers, or the next time you want to build a house using the stones of another man's ruin, remember Okafor. The gods have a very long memory, and their favorite joke is the one they play on the man who thinks he is the comedian. Tell me in the comments, who is the Okafor in your life? And don't forget to subscribe before Okafor steals your data and tells you it's a gift from the ancestors.